Okay, so Mr. Toke, please can I get some feedback from you? Hello. Okay, basically we'll just be continuing with a couple of things for the visualizations. So we've gone over a couple of visualizations. So please, can you show us what you did? Because I said last time that we're going to work on the visual. So the links I did, were you able to work with the visuals, create visuals for the COVID-19 report or something? Hello, Mr. Tope. Were you able to create the report that I asked for? Hello? Okay, so can you share your screen and just show us the report that you're able to create quickly so that I can just make a few corrections before we talk about filters and sliders? Tope, hi. So please, could you create the report? Since you're able to create a report, is it possible for you to show us what you worked on? I just want to see if there's any, use that to gauge the need for any form of correction before we do the last thing that we're about to do. Please, I'll need feedback if you're not able to so that we can move ahead as quickly as possible. So did you have any issues while you were doing that? And if yes, what were the issues?
Maru. Oh,
Yes,
we can't
please.
hear you, Mr. Tope.
I just need some form of feedback. Did he have any issues? What were the issues that he had?
Can Can you hear him, Maru? Because he's talking, but I can't hear him. Oh.
Hey, talk where? Basically, today we'll be looking at filters. Sorry, we'll be looking at filters and quickly do this. Present. Okay. So can you see my screen, please? So Miriam, please, since Tomide can't respond, can you see my screen?
No, I can't see your screen. Okay, it's presenting. Yes, I can see your
Hello.
screen. I can see your screen now.
Huh?
I can see your screen now.
Okay. So Tokwe, basically we've talked about almost all the Okay, we can put it on page one, on page three. So we basically talked about all the guys that we need to talk about. And we've looked at their bar and column charts, look at the area and line charts. We looked at pie and donuts. We looked at the cards and gauges. We've talked about key influencers and KPIs. We've looked at maps. Have we looked at maps? So two visuals that I said we'll talk about were slicers and Q&A. So now the fun about this is, let me reduce the size of this a little so that we can add another visual right on top of it. So we'll just add another visual right on top of that. Okay. Something doesn't feel right about this. Oh. Okay, we've already looked at filters. So basically, we can, in place of writing entire functions, just come over to and use filters rather than writing entire functions, especially when the function's basis is to categorize that data, which is practically part of the reasons why certain times almost all your functionalities are available here without having to write much code. So this is the beauty of the tool. So now we can use a filter that is actually a visual. So the name of that filter is called a slicer. And as we can see, there are different levels of hierarchy for filtration when it comes to data. Now, one of those hierarchies is on this page. So you can see that we have multiple pages. So you can filter based on the page. Now, there's a visual called a slicer. Now, what a slicer simply does, and this is one of the most unique visuals that you come across as you work, is a slicer. So what a slicer simply does is it filters based on a certain data item or a data field. So now let's say I want to filter the entire data on this page by probably, let's say, the order date or the ship date. Well, let me look for something okay, let's say I want to filter the entire data on this page by category. If I decide to filter by category, now when I select a particular category, the entire data on the page conforms to that category. Okay. Hello. Just need having feedback here. Hello, Miriam.
I'm here.
Please, could you
Is that
confirm if it's just me that's having feedback?
if what?
Could you confirm if it's just me that's having a sort of is it just me that's having some sort of interference?
No. I think so because nothing is interfering or anything here.
Okay. Sorry.
What's the problem?
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Okay, perfect. Can we still see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Now, as I was saying, filters, slicers act as filters on that particular page level. So whenever it's active, it affects the entire page. So now, for a thing, for categories like components, you can see that it's entirely blank across the page. Clothing has just some value, but not really much. Bikes is where what carries the majority of the weight here in this scenario. So now we've talked about slicers. So now we understand that slicers actually act as filters. It's just that it is a visual. So now to bring us on another question, can we use multiple slicers on one page? Yes. So you can use multiple slicers on one page, and they would all affect the work on that page. So now let's look at another one. Let's say we take number of days to manufacture. We have 0, 4, between 0 and 4. So that's another slicer. Then let's say we have sales. Let's go to our sales column and just pick probably the order date. So we would see that there are different levels to using slicers. So now with things like dates, remember when I was talking about data types, I said we have numeric, non-numeric, and date time. Now with date time data type, you should be careful when using date time data type. Whenever you do not see this calendar format, that means it will not make available to you the data hierarchy. So by that, or the date hierarchy rather. So let me pick the date hierarchy in this situation. So this year, quarter, month, and day. So Power BI is smart enough to bring out each of those. So we can now decide to eliminate what we do not want, or let's say if we want it this way, we can select a particular, let's say 2014, and under 2014, we can further select using the drop down. So the particular quarter that we want to see in 2014, let's say just quarter two of 2014. So certain times, all of this, most of the calculations that you would want to do, emphasis on most, not all, certain times you could do them with your filters. Just take the values that you do not want to see, or take the values that you want to put into consideration. So that helps your entire analysis process. So you do visual analysis, since most times, especially when the job is really up close, you could just do a visual analysis, complete visual analysis, without needing to do so much transformation that traditionally would be done with Excel. So with Excel, you have to write dark queries to do each of these things. So rather than setting up a filter that you could just use to do this as quickly as possible. So now we could now eliminate some things from the hierarchy like quarter. If we eliminate quarter from the hierarchy, we could still eliminate day and still eliminate. month. So now we just have, so we still have our days to manufacture. So now your slicers, you could decide, would also, that will bring us to the next thing that we'll talk about pretty soon, when I would be talking about formatting of visuals. So basically, each of these your visuals can be formatted. Now, under the visualizations pane, you have the field pane, the format pane, and the analytics pane. Now, for setting visuals, analytics features will be available, especially where you have really large data on that visual. So let's say for a visual like your, for most times your graph, your bar and column charts, your area and line charts, your what other charts mostly have analytics features. So I've mentioned line and area charts. I've mentioned bar and column charts, and which other one? Your scatter charts, also scatter chart, and your waterfall charts. Basically, these charts have these quick analytics features enabled. So in this case, you can check out the minimum line, maximum line, average line. So basically, for those of us that can remember secondary school days where during work you plot a graph and you get uh, the line of intercept and all of that. So basically, these things occur here too. So we can get the minimum line, the maximum line. So I just need to add. So once I come here, let's say here the maximum line, I just add, and the maximum line has been added. Let's say the constant line. So I get the constant line, I add, and the constant line gets added. Here the constant line is ironically the bottom line. So the measure can be anything that we want to put it. So let's say X amount. So things like that. So I'll just be removing these lines since they are not useful in my visual right now. So you just use the analytics feature as is important to your visual. So you can add as many, you could also put on data labels. That this is for the analytics feature. So mostly that is how it works. Sorry. Simply add a line. So let me remove this. And let's get back to format. So formatting the visual, you simply go to the format pane under the visualization pane. So what you simply do there is come here, and we have a couple of, this is generally the same, emphasis on generally. There are a couple of visuals that will have some minute changes which you notice as you walk. Sorry. Okay, so there are some visuals that will have some minute changes which you notice as you walk. So basically what data labels does, and most times when you're using bar and column charts, always come here to turn on your data labels, especially when it's really tiny for people who can, so that it can make more sense to people. You should come here and turn on your data labels. So these are data labels. Simply put on the visual the exact thing that needs to be seen. So this is it. Now, under your legend, what your legend does, so we all know this is the legend. So most times the default position for things like this, is usually the best position because Power BI just looks around for where it has the most space and throws it in there. So if you do not like the way something in particular looks, come here and change it. So for instance, my y-axis, I want it to be on the right. I change my y-axis to my right. And let's say I want to darken the color, increase the text size. So things like that are easily done without having to. So I'm just showing us what we can do here. But we can notice that it's tightening this. So I could increase the size and all of that. Increase the minimum category. So now I will have to scroll and all of that. So I could still, let me just reduce this back. So these are the title. I can turn it off. There's no longer any title. We'll turn it back on. So in cases where you're trying to save space or like this, where my y-axis is intuitive enough already, and I need to save as much space as possible, I can just do away with that. So so for particular visuals, you come here and just tinker around with this. So the more you work with this, the better. So with things like this, it's mostly based on what exactly do you want to see. So this is more like the creative process or the creative part of the data analysis process. Because remember, visualization is limited by how creative you can get with it. So basically, if you can tinker around with your values. But one thing we should make sure, I think I mentioned this in the last class, was keep your visuals as unclustered as possible, so you do not have clustered visuals. So is there any question as regards what we've talked about, using filters and using the format? So Mr. Tope, any question? Hi, Mr. Tope, any question? And is there any chart that you've tried that you do not understand? Okay, so you don't have any questions. So, okay, yes, I believe you're getting a hang of using the tool already. Okay, so
Wait, Maru.
now we'll
Mr.
build
This
the
no
entire
is
page. So for this, a
question.
couple of these should,
Oh,
yeah?
Mr. Tokwe, I'm asking if this no is for I hope you are following or the question Maru asked. Okay, sir. Okay. All right. All right. Maru, please
So
proceed.
I want you to do something for me. So on that particular data that I asked you to go get, there is so I asked you to get one for odometers and one for Nigeria. So we're going to build the reports right now here together, so you can see what exactly I'm working, what exactly I wanted from you. So we'll do that on page 2 and page 3. So let me just keep this data here and let me start from the top. So get data. There was no need for me to even go to get data. I think it should be among my recent sources. Okay, okay. Mm. So most times, you could just go through your recent sources and you'd be able to find any data that you've connected to in a while. I have it here, odometers, coronavirus. No, correct. So that's really the exciting part. So I don't need to go over and over the entire process, especially when I've connected to a particular data source before. So data from the web is dependent on how fast both your internet connection and your this thing and your. I hope you can see my navigator. Hello. Okay. Hello. Can you see it now? Mr. Tokwe, can you see the navigator now? Hi. Hello. Please, stop it. Please, could you reach your mic? Hello. Hello, Tope, please, could you mute your mic? Okay. Now that was where the interference was coming from. Sorry, I didn't know you couldn't hear me. So I just noticed I was talking and I wasn't getting feedback. So I was talking about the process of doing this. So now most times you should actually look at the data that you want to work with before loading it in or before selecting, so you don't just randomly select. That's why there's a preview so that you can see what you're about to ship in. So I'm just going to look through the data and just look around and decide what to drop, what to keep. Okay, so this one has a continent. Does this have a continent row column? So now you can see table 2 and table 1 are the same, one and the same. Table 3 the same. Yeah, table 3 is the same with the rest. So we could pick anyone between table 1, 2, and 3 because that's the data that we are looking for. So this just practically splits it into different sections of the data. So this doesn't make any sense to us right now as it is. So we'll just pick between table 1, 2, and table 3. And most times, take note when you're scraping from the web, most times the data you're looking for will always be in the HTML table because remember that your data is always stored in the backend in tables. So that is what is used to build the data that you are looking at on the web page. So let's work. So we just pick, let's say, table 1. So now in this case, we might want to transform first. So transforming before loading. So whichever one you decide to do works for you. So I'll just transform data. So now this one is an index column. Now take note, up here we can see our data types. You can just change our data types from here rather than coming up here to do that. So now
Maru,
this index column, do we actually need the index column? Hello? Yeah?
hold on. Mr. Toko is not here. Welcome back, sir. Are you having network challenges?
Hello.
The mic is muted.
Okay.
Mute your mic, sir. Your mic is muted. Okay. I think it is.
Okay, so Mr. Tepe, I continue. So I said the index column here, do we necessarily need the index column? If we do not, we can as well remove it because there's already an index here. We could, in cases where we need index columns, we could also manually add index columns. So now down here, we have a couple of columns, column 16 through to column 19, that we do not need as it is in our data. So we could just do away with them. Here, column 16 has a couple of contents that is not empty. So we can just look at what exactly is not in. We can just filter out. So here, this is just simply exploratory data analysis. We are just looking at exactly what is the content of our data and all of that. So let's drop column 17. Okay, column 17. Go down control. You can not select multiple columns at the same time. And just remove columns. So now I would just merge column, these two columns together so that those contents at the bottom can get joined. So you can see that where had no has been populated already. So there is at the end of the day, we're looking at null columns. So we just keep looking at our filters. So we don't have any null value here. So we just keep looking at our filters just to get out, look at our data and see what it looks like. To just explore our data. So what exactly are these null values? So you can see that this particular null, the blank, is actually for the continent of Diamond Princess and MZ, Zandam, which do not fall under any continent here within our data. So we could just quickly, in this case, let's say for a run an analysis, we could just quickly Google what continent they fall under and just populate that space null with that particular, the blank space with that particular value. So let's say, let me just quickly Google that. Let's say what continent is the Amon princess? Mm, so it's actually a ship. So that doesn't fall into any continent. So I believe that this is also a ship or something. So now we can undo this now that we have a better understanding of our data, and we'll just change the name of this merge to continent. Continent. Oh, our data is ready for visualization. So we can close and apply. Okay, so Mr. Tepe, what was your own transformation like with the assignment, the odometer assignment? So what exactly do you do for your own transformation process? So you can hear me, your mic is actually mute, so probably you should type. Okay, basically, Mr. Tokwe, since we can't hear you now, the data is loading to the is already coming in. So now we already have table one in our data. Now we'll start building a visual as soon as possible. But before that, we know that active cases is supposed to be a number. So let's hit edit query. So another important part when you're editing query, which is easily forgotten, is checking the data types. Sometimes Power BI might not give you the correct data types that you're looking for. So working with that data might have errors. So now, in case of this total recovered, this is not supposed to be text. It's supposed to be whole number. But because you have values like NA here within your data, you will now be having issues. So let's now replace values. So replace values, we'll replace any with null. So N A with null. And then we can change this to whole number comfortably. Then in certain scenarios, let's say you can also replace the NA. This time, let's say null with none, not a number. So this time it will automatically pick it up as decimal because it cannot describe exactly how this will be filled in. So sometimes you could just select multiple if I undo this, so I have active cases and total recover. Those are the two columns I want to select. Then replace values, and I'll pick n/a, replace them with none. Okay. And automatically to search for data type. And I could also still change the data type for those to say whole number. Now none will give us errors because there's an error in your data. That is what really matters in this case. So whenever you're using none, remember to always use decimal number. Okay. So now let's search for the error because it's still flagging. Okay. Change the data type. Decimal number. Changed. Change data type. Decimal number. So because they're already flagged an error before, sometimes it happens like that. So just select one after the other. But generally, when you're working with multiple data, and it that can carry out the same that can carry out the same function on, you can just use control down control, select multiple columns and work on all of them at once. Okay, now I can close and apply. So I move to page 2. So sometimes this takes a while. So Mr. Tope, I'm still waiting for your. Okay, try to determine. Okay, so you just checked for errors. You didn't uh, do any form of exploration on the data to just see what kind of insight you can get from that data. So that is part of the process. So when you go to transform your data, so unlike with other tools where you just visually just look at the data, so you could just explore the data to look at the insights you can actually draw from it before you even start visualizing. Most times you could just look at the data, okay, and determine the kind of insights that you could just draw from it. So I could check for a couple of values and the correlation between a couple of things from within the the uh, the Power Query editor, like I did, where I filtered a couple of rows that belong in one place or the other. So certain times it's really important that you do that, because sometimes it helps you to have a view of what you want to work with. Okay. Okay, sometimes it's like this with when you're working with data that you scrape directly from the web. So most times when these changes we are trying to occur, sometimes it downloads an instance of that data connection again. So since my data is on, and so it's always going to try to refresh to get the most current form of that data. So we can see active cases has become a submission. So we're going to quickly view the visual as quickly as possible. So let's just get a couple of cards. what we just do is get a couple of cards, get one multi-row card, and one map, then probably add a button somewhere. We have our multi-row card. So for this multi-row card, we just add, let's say, country, add country, add continent. Okay, let's do it the other way around. Continent and country. So that it's already broken down by continent. So the order in which you arrange this determines how it appears here. So continent for country. Then we'll just add, say, total cases, total recovered, total deaths. So we're done plotting that already. So when it's time to format, we'll just look at all of them later on. So we already have one. We could just put on a couple of cards. Then here we're working with a lot of slicers. A card, I'll reduce the size of this card. So let's say this card will carry active cases. So now this is why I said rather than replacing the value, we could just use rather than replacing value, we could just use null there. Because in cases where you want to do summations, whenever you have not a number, that means because that when you have not a number, that doesn't have a specific value yet, and by calculation, that would you cannot have a summation of something that is not a number, so it will always bring it out as none, especially in cases where you're not plotting it against something. So let me quickly remove this and use something like total cases so we could see quickly. We can see 123 million total cases in total. So this is a grand summation of everything. So in this case, I could just quickly go back to my data and replace values again. I'll just quickly undo that. So that will be for later. So just add a couple of cards, as I said earlier. So that's So we'll quickly go change that later on. Then one more card for active cases. Then we'll plot a total test against population. I'll just get population and get total test. By country, by continent. So we can have a drill down. And expand this. You put it on focus mode. So you can just see Asia, China, and India are really high. Also, like data can be windowed and all of that. That's really so. What basically the difference between this is that it takes the total test into consideration for the ranking. That's just basically it. That's basically what two tips does. It takes the two tips into consideration for the ranking of this. So we could just basically put on data label, as I said earlier, so I can be clear. Now in this case, let's make it line and cluster column chart, and line values we could just take in without test. So you can see if there's a trend over it, or we will just take in total cases. We know that there will surely be a trend or a correlation between those two. If focus mode, we can see this clearer: 20 million, 4 million, 10 million, 21 million. So for each of this, we can just take a look at the correlation and all of that. Then we could still expand down. So for this might not be as clear because of the way the data is clustered. So this is where I was talking about having cluster data that it wouldn't make any sense to the viewer or to someone who's looking at that data. So when we expand it, it practically draws zero to no insight there. So we have, let's look at the correlation of part to whole. So for this, let's take continent again and look at better cases. Then probably for details, you could look at number of active cases. So in this visual, I would might love to remove all. So the categorization of all. Sorry. All so can data can come clearer and make more sense. That's it. Okay, let's leave those two ships. Now, for the details, all we have for those details is the active cases scenarios in each of them. So for active cases, I'll select or move blank and move not a number. Now, because not a number has been is already a part of data type. Remember when I was talking about removing it from here? So it's already part of the calculation in memory. That is one of the reasons why you should be careful before you change, you replace values, even if it's going to help you to eradicate errors and your data in your data. You be careful before you do that. So let's add a couple of more cards uh, just to Okay, let me just add a gauge here. So for the gauge, we set. So this is affecting the visual a lot, so I might just as well just quickly change that back. Range type, place value. So yeah, those two. Data recovered active inactive cases, place values. So Mr. Topper, I hope you are following.